Today I'm going to be talking about perfectionism, and funny story about it. The reason that I'm making this video in the first place is because I already recorded a perfectionism talk and Q&A on Instagram Live, and when I got to the very end of it, after about 45 minutes of talking, I tried to hit end, the whole thing wouldn't end, I had to quit the app, I lost everything, and here I am talking about perfectionism over again. So just to give you a little bit of an overview about what you're in for, I'm going to first give you the alternative to perfectionism, so the overarching goal of what you can strive for, 3 different tools that you can use to help yourself let go of perfectionism. After that, I've got a specific technique that has worked for 100% of the clients that I've given it to, that have tried it out to break their all or nothing thinking, to break that perfectionist mindset. And then I have another tool at the end if you stick around. So just to get started, perfectionism, a lot of people think that perfectionism comes from ambition. It's like, well, I want to be the very best that I can. And that's not true. Perfectionism is not a product of ambition. It's a product of fear. And I'll repeat that because it's important enough. Perfectionism is not a product of ambition. It's a product of fear. So therefore, it's just not a good goal to strive for. It's not striving to be the best. It's actually striving for approval. And what you're thinking is that if I just do this well enough, if I'm good enough, if what I put out into the world is good enough, if I look good enough, then I'll get approval. So perfectionism is actually striving for approval. And what you do when you allow how you feel to be dictated by other people, you're actually giving that responsibility away. And then you blame yourself for something that's not even in your control in the first place. It's like, oh, well, they didn't like my work. Oh, well, they don't like me. That's not on you, that's on them. And so you're completely giving this control away, and you're giving other people control for how you feel. So why would you do it? So what I've come up with as an alternative to perfectionism, rather than saying this has to be perfect before it goes out into the world, I have to be perfect at this and perfect at that, and I have to be the perfect person, is to strive for mastery. And I love the concept of mastery because it's something that's never really finished. And this is why it might drive you mad if you're a perfectionist, is because you never really get to a place where you say, I'm finished. But that's what I think is so great about it, is because you can always just keep getting better. Mastery is, rather than striving for some end goal, is actually refocusing on your effort. How much effort are you putting into this? Can you keep getting better at it? It's about learning, it's about growth, it's about this endless refinement of yourself and your work. And so that's why I love the concept of mastery so much. And there are a couple things that you can do in order to strive for mastery. And the first of them is deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is really just, rather than going through the motions and saying, well, I'm just doing the thing, it's going through and looking at what needs work. What am I bad at? And you can think of this in terms of, for example, with your writing. What are my weak points in my writing? What do I really need to work on? You can do it with really any skill that you're learning. I do it with violin all the time. Rather than just running through a piece and going through it and saying, well, that was great. That was just fine. I stop at the places that I think can be improved, and I really hammer them in, and I focus on them, and I try to figure out, well, how can I bring those up so that the whole entire quality of the piece then gets better? So deliberate practice is the first tool that you want to use to strive for mastery. The second one is feedback, and this is tied right in with deliberate practice. You can't really practice deliberately unless you're getting feedback. The first source of feedback is obviously yourself. So you have to look with some sense of self-awareness and say what needs work, and not just kid yourself about what kind of practice you're doing. The other thing you can do is get feedback from a teacher or a coach or trainer, whoever. It depends on what you're working on. But get that outside feedback from somebody else who can be very honest with you and say, this is what's going well and this is what needs work. And the third thing is just consistency. It's putting in that effort over time. And that's the 3 steps for mastery. So now what I'm going to get into is 3 alternative tools that you can use to help yourself let go of perfectionism a little bit. The first thing, and this is probably the most important, is to allow some self-compassion, because perfectionists tend to be really hard on themselves. They tend to be incredibly self-critical, and that's where the whole, this isn't good enough. It's not perfect. This sucks. You suck. If it's not, it's not up to my standards. And if you allow for a little bit of self-compassion, kindness, understanding, empathy, you can soothe that stress, that criticism, that critical voice, and just kind of smooth things out and allow yourself to say, this is good enough. It's ready to go. Let's put it out there. It doesn't matter if it's perfect. That's the second tool, is to allow for good enough. And you can do this with again, pretty much anything that you're working on. The first example that I'll say is because I'm a writer and I send out emails twice a week. Not every email that I send out is perfect, but when they're good enough, they go. Same thing, you can do this even if you're working on your diet. You can say, if you get to, if you have a meal and you say, well, that could have been better, or I had an extra cookie, so because my diet wasn't perfect, now I'm just going to go nuts for the rest of the weekend. I'll start it over on Monday. Rather than saying, well, I was close enough, I'll just keep going and make things as good as they can be. That's good enough. So you can kind of see how, with a perfectionist mindset, you can totally just blow the progress that you're making. Or for me, if I said, I will not send an email until it's perfect, I could go months, I could go weeks, I could go months without sending an email. And then I've completely lost my consistency. And my audience is gonna look at the first email that goes out, and rather than saying, well, this is perfect, they're gonna say, well, who the hell is this? I haven't heard from her in months. So that's where allowing for good enough can really help, can really help you make progress, can really support you. The third thing is to just celebrate your accomplishments. A lot of people think that I can't pat myself on the back. I can't give myself any kind of reward. I can't think that I have done anything good until I get to the very end. I'm going to save all of this until it's done, until I've lost every single pound that I want to, until I hit that end goal. And then they just steal so much happiness from themselves, because they're waiting. They're just putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. But a perfectionist is actually going to be so good at putting things off that they're really never going to hit that end goal, because it's never going to be perfect. So celebrating accomplishments just means giving yourself rewards for hitting milestones, congratulating yourself, bragging to other people, which I think is totally fair game, because if there are people that like you, like your friends, your family, and you tell them what good you have done, they're going to want to celebrate with you. They're going to think that feels just as good as you do. So they're also reminders of the progress that you're making. They're reminders that you are on the path to mastery, and that you are getting better, that you can look back and you can say, well, I'm doing a lot better now than I was 6 months ago, rather than saying, it's going to take me, 3 years to hit my goal. I'll wait until then. It's not very motivating to say I'm going to put off my happiness for that long. So, perfectionism is really the 3 things that you can use to kind of turn away from it. What you want to be focusing on instead is your effort, your courage, and your compassion. The courage to say it's good enough. The compassion to say it's good enough. And the effort that you're using on the path to mastery. Perfectionism, like I said, it's a product of fear, and it arises from this fear of non-acceptance. And like I said, that is something that's out of your control. But what you do have control over is whether you accept yourself. So you want to use that control to your advantage and say, I can accept myself, I can accept the work that I'm doing, I can accept the person that I am, and I can display that compassion and courage and put in that effort. Okay, we have gotten to the tool that I said has worked for every single client and myself, that I have given it to break this all or nothing thinking. And I love when people come to me and they say, I'm all or nothing, because then I can tell them, no, you're not. I will break you. And the tool that I've given them, it's actually just one line. It's a question. The question is, what's the next best thing? If you have something that goes wrong, what's the next best thing? Most people will say, something went wrong, it's not perfect, I won't do anything, I won't put in any more effort, it's not worth it. Of course it's worth it. Of course it's worth it. What's the next best thing? And I'll use an example of dieting. So if you have plans on a Sunday morning, go out to brunch with your friends, you looked at the menu already, you planned what you're gonna get, and they decide, no, we're gonna go to another restaurant. Rather than saying, oh, I have no idea what I'm gonna do now, so I'll just eat whatever the hell I want. What's the next best thing? You go, you look at the menu, you make the best possible choices with the knowledge that you have. So things like that, you can use it in so many scenarios outside of dieting, but you should always be asking, what's the next best thing? Because it's really all you can do. There are going to be so many instances on the path to your goal where things aren't going to be perfect, where it's going to be impossible to follow the plan A. So you have to practice coming up with plan B or plan C or plan D if you need to. That's how you can make the most possible progress toward your goal and to feel good about it. Okay, so like I said in the beginning, that I would have something additional to give you. If you would like to receive the quest that I've given my students in Mindset Mastery, which is my 16-week guided coaching course, just send me a DM, or if I post this on YouTube, leave me a comment or something. Email me at alicia@ritualcoaching.com, and I'll send you the quest that I gave my students in Mindset Mastery during the week that we studied perfectionism. And you can have that. You can go off, we can break this, and we can be imperfect.